Hello everyone. Till now, we have discussed about workload APIs, where we have discussed what is pod, deployment, replication controller, replica set. But in the workload API, ultimately we were creating the pods, and inside the pod, the container was running it. Then we have discussed about networking API, where we have seen that how to configure the network if I have multiple replica pods are running it, how to create the virtual services or virtual load balancer for them to reach that, how to expose the service containerized application to outside world, that is through network APIs. Okay, now coming that, okay, each of your pod is running a container. Inside the container some application is there. If the pod gets deleted due to some reason, if the pod gets deleted, definitely pod is not accessible, pod get deleted, I will lose my data as well. To safeguard my data, we have two types of API which Kubernetes provided. One is called PV, second is called PVC. What is PV? PV stand for persistent volume, PVC stand for persistent volume claim. Now question comes, how, where, which one will be using it? So first of all, PV is the piece of storage. You can visualize the PV as the external hard drive, okay, where your real data will be residing it. Okay, so whenever a container wants to containerize application in Kubernetes want to store the data, there will be a PV for that. Depending on our situation, the PV will be either automatically created or we will be manually creating it. Okay, so what is PV? PV is a subsystem provides an API for user and administrator that abstracts how storage is provided and from where it is consumed. Okay, so PV is a piece of storage, as you can see it in the cluster that has been provisioned by the administrator or dynamically provisioned. Okay, so it is similar like how the node is the part of cluster, same way PV is the part of storage. Then second definition, what is PVC then? See, whenever a user wants to consume the storage, they need to claim it, and that is what exactly PVC is. PVC is a request for the storage by a user. It is similar like a pod. When the pod requests a resource, node provides the resource. Similarly, PVC will request a resource, PV will provide the space to them. So when pod runs, it requests for CPU and memory to the node. Similarly, PVC will request the storage space. Okay, depend on access mode and size and other things. Two type of provisioning works. One is static, one is dynamic. In this session, currently we will understand static. Later on, I will be adding the videos after the project, that depending on the feedback and other things, I will be explaining the dynamic provisioning lab. I will be also providing it. For explanation purpose, I will be covering it now. Later on, I will provide the lab for that. Reclaim type, two types of reclaims are there, retain and delete. Retain means if the application get deleted, still the data should be retained, or if application get deleted, data should delete. Okay, these are two types are there. Now see how it looks like. This is your storage. You will be mapping PV. PVC will claim PV and map to the application. So first, if I am talking about static provisioning, you guys will be creating the PV. You will be mentioning from where and the size of the PV as well. Size of the PV as well. From where means for which location you want to map it, and the size of the PV will be also mapping it out. So first you will create the PV type resources. Then you will be creating the PVC type resources. In the PVC type resource, you will mention what size you need it. Okay, what access mode you need it, and what is the storage class. Storage class is quality of services. Like I want some specific storage class, you can mention that that should be available in your system. Using that, they can claim it. Okay. So main thing is, if I'm writing PV first and creating PV first and blocking the storage, reserving the storage first, and then PVC will request this PV, then it is called static provisioning. Here you can see the diagram as well. Step number one, I am creating PV. Step number two, this is mapped from here. Step number three, PVC is claiming the PV. Okay, PVC is submitting the request. If everything is matching as per the request, PVC will be able to map the PV. Okay, this exactly is the scenario we will be going to try it out. Okay, I'll show you both the YAML file and then we will discuss in detail how the YAML has been designed. Okay, so this is a pv.yaml. You can see it here. The type is persistent volume. PV, this is the name. Label is for the filtering purpose for now. Currently, this label is nowhere related to what label and selector we have seen in deployment and services. This is just for the currently, if I have many PV created and I want to, through the command, I want to filter it out, I can use this label. Important part is this storage class. Currently, I don't have any storage class created, so it is mentioned manual. What is the size I am mentioning? 10 GB. Okay. What is the access mode? Read write once. And which location? So currently it is host path. Host path means wherever the pod will start in that particular pod worker node. This path will be providing this 10 GB space. Okay. That is what exactly how the PV will be mapping the storage from this location where the pod will start, whichever worker node. So from there, that location will be mapped as a persistent volume. So first you guys will be creating the PV, then you will be writing the pvc.yaml. In the pvc.yaml, you can see the storage class is manual, access mode is read write only once, sorry, and the size. These three things will be there. Automatically, it will go and bound at PV. Okay, I'll just go and create the PV first. I'll show you kubectl get PV. Okay, there is another PV is there, but I create it, create -f pv.yaml. I create the PV. PV is created. I'll show you kubectl get PV. You can see the PV is available. PV is available. It is not bounded anywhere. So it means PV is available. The moment I will create the PVC based on my request size, based on my access mode and storage class, automatically it will bound it. If the two of the PV is satisfying my request, then it will go alphabetically or ordinal order. Whatever PV will come in upper in the layer, upper in the finding, they will automatically bind that one. Can I mention the PV name in the pvc.yaml? Answer is no. You cannot mention it. Okay. So I'll just go and say create -f pvc.yaml. Okay. Now you say that kubectl get PV. You'll see that is bounded here. But can I go and use it directly now? Answer is no. You need to go here and create the pod.yaml file. Inside the pod.yaml file, one more section is coming under the spec, that is volume section. Under the volume section, I am mentioning the claim name. So the claim which I have created it here, correct? The claim which I have created here, kubectl get PVC. This claim name I am mentioning it here inside my pod YAML file. Okay, so this YAML file is there. This is the claim name I have mentioned it here. What exactly it will do it? You can see there is a under spec volume section. There is a name of the volume is coming. This name is defined by you only. You can use any name here. Only thing which should be matched here is the claim name which you have created it already. This claim will match to this, and where.ww.html will automatically use this claim path. So in the claim path, what we are claiming? MNT data. So let's go and see it. I'll just go and create the pod kubectl create -f pvpod.yaml. So pod, once it is created, let it creates. I'll show you that particular path, how it will look like in our lab documentation. So lab documentation, I will be providing this lab documentation to you. So you guys can go and check it out. The lab number 13, which is PVPVC. So I have done the first part, second part. Now, once the pod get started, the pod is running. I can go and describe the pod, kubectl describe pod, my pod. I think the name is my pod. You can see it here. The persistent volume claim is coming here. Okay. I go inside the pod and show you. I'll use the command kubectl exec command to go inside the pod. I'm inside the pod only. Now, if I write something under this location, cd where www.html, I'll go and write some file here, touch new file. Okay, I just create this thing. I come out from the pod and show you MNT data location. You'll be able to see this thing. Okay, so this is the persistency. Even though my pod gets deleted, I'll go and delete my pod, delete -f pvpod.yaml, sorry, cd. I'll go and delete my pod kubectl delete -f mypod.yml, pvpod.yml, and I just go and recreate it again, still my data will be available to myself. Okay, let's go and create it and see. Once the container is created, now I'll go and run the command exec inside the pod. If you go cd where www html, so by default PV will be always going to retain your data until unless you will not mark as delete. Okay, last part of this is how to how to create a dynamic provisioning. What is the meaning of dynamic provisioning? In the case of dynamic provisioning, what will happen? You need a storage provisioner. As you can see in the diagram here, if I have the dynamic provisioning, the storage provisioners is required here. Storage provisioners are something which vendors provided. You can visualize storage provisioners is the plugins which all the storage provider provided. Okay, so you will be only creating the PVC. PVC request will be submitted to the storage provisioner. Storage provisioner will see the request size, what is the size you requested, and automatically create the PV. So in the dynamic provisioning, user or administrator will not create the PV. PV will be created by the provisioners. So your request will go to the storage provisioner. Through the storage provisioner, it will be going to the storage and target, and they will create the same size what has been requested and map it here. That is called dynamic provisioning. So in current project which I am going to cover it, we will be only discussing PVC part. Later on, once I will get the feedback from you guys, I will be adding the dynamic provisioning here. You guys can drop a mail amit@openwriteup.com if you want to see the dynamic provisioning. I will definitely adding it there. Thank you everyone. Thanks for the joining the session.